Just when we thought it couldn't get any worse, Nintendo has made another bad corporate decision. Cube Midna's lament, here we go. This article sums it up pretty well. Literally just starting at the title here. Nintendo, we can brick your Switch console if you pirate games. And by the way, that does not just apply to the Switch 2, it also applies to just the regular Switch 1 that we've all had for a while, because the Switch 1 actually just got an update too, so they're not intending on putting that down, at least for now, which means that this will apply for our current Switches as well. So the company updates its user agreement, its end user license agreement, to say that it can render a Nintendo console unusable, which is what the brick terminology means if you're unfamiliar, if any piracy or tampering is detected. That doesn't sound like too bad on its surface, but let's read on. Nintendo has quietly updated its user agreement to warn gamers that it can brick a console if piracy or hacking is detected. The change is the first update to Nintendo's user agreement since 2021, which was 4 years ago. The previous version told customers that they were not allowed to adapt, reverse engineer, or modify a Nintendo user account. The new EULA does not mince words. It says in this article, quotes, "You acknowledge that if you fail to comply with the foregoing restrictions, Nintendo may render the Nintendo account services and or the applicable Nintendo device permanently unusable in whole or in part." And this is literally taken right off of the end user license agreement right here. So let's actually read this a little bit. Without limitation, you agree that you may not publish, copy, modify, reverse engineer, lease, rent, decompile, disassemble, distribute, offer for sale, or create derivative works of any portion of the Nintendo account services, bypass, modify, decrypt, defeat, tamper with, or otherwise circumvent any of the functions or protections of the Nintendo account services, including through the use of any hardware or software that would cause the Nintendo account services to operate in accordance with its documentation and intended use. Okay. Obtain or install any unauthorized copies of Nintendo account services. That's fair. That one's fine. That part's fine. Exploit the Nintendo account services in any manner other than to use them in accordance with the applicable documentation and intended use. How vague is that, huh? In each case, without Nintendo's written consent or express authorization, which no one's gonna get, let's be honest. You acknowledge that if you fail to comply with the foregoing restrictions, Nintendo may render your Nintendo account or your Switch 2 completely unusable. The new agreement also expands on Nintendo's definition of prohibited activities. Efforts to bypass, modify, decrypt, defeat, tamper with, otherwise circumvent any of the functions or protections of Nintendo account user services will violate the EULA. So Nintendo has had a history with taking a very aggressive stance when it comes to modding, and that's why when people try to mod any Nintendo game basically at all, they have to use emulators on a PC. Let's read on a little bit. Nintendo might be more concerned about attempts to hack and mod the console being the Switch 2, but they're gonna apply it to the Switch 1 as well, let's be honest, because they're still gonna update the software for the Switch 1, at least for a little while. The company has long taken a strict stance against bootlegs, using legal threats and lawsuits to shut down emulators of older Nintendo consoles. So they can really only do that on Switches, but I'm sure the reason that they would want to is because if you want to play older games on your Switch the Nintendo way, you have to pay them money. It's a subscription feature. It is locked behind that. Piracy seems okay, but Nintendo may just bend the definition of the word piracy a little bit. That wouldn't surprise me very much at all, and it basically gives them the green light to do whatever they want if they feel like it. But modding, it's unclear how they will detect it, but they probably will somehow, otherwise they wouldn't say that we're just gonna brick your Switch, right? So this is not a good sign at all, because it gives a you actually own nothing message real hard. Like, if I go to the store and I buy a Switch, okay, this Switch is no longer owned by Nintendo, right? At least you would think so. It is owned by me, and it is my personal opinion that if I buy something, I own it, and no one should be able to tell me what I can and cannot do with the device that I own. But Nintendo seems to think that they should be allowed to do that. And not only do they think they should be allowed to do that, they are making everyone agree to it, because by purchasing a Nintendo Switch and playing on it, especially with the Nintendo account services, whether you realize it or not, you basically signed this EULA. Like, you signed this end user license agreement, whether you know it or not, right? If you're using a Switch, especially to play games online. Now, speaking to the online subject a little bit, this makes sense because some people, are able to hack devices and add exploits to allow for cheating in any like kind of online games. That's fine. Like, if Nintendo wants to take action against that, that's perfectly fair, and I'm behind it. But I don't understand the, let's call it hesitation, behind modding and emulators. I really don't get it at all, especially if you're trying to emulate a older Nintendo console, like a 3DS, for example. Why wouldn't Nintendo allow that? And it's because, at least I think so anyway, of what I said earlier, which is the fact that if you want to play some of those older games on the Switch, it's locked behind a subscription wall. And Nintendo wants money. At least that's the way they're making it look, for sure. So, yeah, it's not looking great. It's given a message, and the message is that you guys own nothing. When you buy a console, you basically buy the privilege to use it in the way that we tell you that you can, and if you use it in a way that we don't necessarily agree with, then your privilege to use your console is just taken away. It's gone. The last time I dogged on Nintendo, I said that, I said repeatedly that, oh, I hate to say this because it's Nintendo and whatever, but I can't not criticize them for this. I simply don't think that Nintendo should be able to tell us what we are and are not allowed to do with the device that we buy and pay for and that we own. And I put own in quotation marks there because they're acting like we actually own nothing except the privilege to, play games on a Nintendo console. A privilege that can be taken away, according to them, and according to this license section of the EULA that you can still see right here. So basically, to conclude, this stuff right here is why it's very nice nowadays to see a gaming company that actually cares about its player base, because Nintendo just does not. It's become very obvious between everything I covered in my last video, going over some of the Switch 2 stuff and some of the stupid corporate Nintendo stuff, and everything I'm covering in this video about the new EULA that Nintendo quietly updated. And I say quietly because if we go on the Switch, I went on it just to confirm before recording this video. It never actually explicitly says this to people, so this is why myself and many others on YouTube are making videos covering this new EULA change, because Nintendo kind of did a piss poor job of telling people about it. And if it weren't for articles like this, and if it weren't for YouTubers such as myself highlighting this, calling it out, and criticizing it, I don't think a whole lot of people would know about it. So that's why I made this video. I hope it was useful. for some people, and I hope that it did help you guys out in some way. I am going to continually criticize Nintendo on every stupid little thing that they are doing. Having a negative tone on this channel is not exactly what I set out to do. I've already said that, but Nintendo is just doing too much stuff that I can't just let slide without calling it out. I feel like I have a responsibility to do that, and so I'm going to. But that's going to be all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you would like to subscribe, do subscribe. I would appreciate a subscribe and a like on the video as well. Leave a comment, let me know what you think concerning any of Nintendo's new activities. And I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, please do take care of yourselves. Have a good one.
Why would I throw in the towel? I just got on my bag. I don't make no mistakes. No, I'm coming for mine, and there ain't no one taking my place. Listen, I've taken some L's. Yeah, that means I lived and I learned. Now I got some money to burn.